Hey guys, how are you? Welcome back to my garden. Today's video is part 3 of planting spring bulbs, and as I already announced in my previous 2 videos, today I'll be planting them in pots. So this will be really exciting for those of you who only garden on a balcony such as I did in the past, or for those of you who have the soil conditions that makes it difficult to grow any kind of bulbs in the soil basically. So that is also a very good alternate for you. So what I'm going to do now is flip the phone because I've already prepared everything on my outdoor dinner table and just walk you through those kind of things that I want to plant today and just show you how to do it. First things first, so as my previous videos, the first thing I want to do is I'm just going to talk you through all of those beautiful bulbs that I'm going to put in my pots today. But before, one quick word about why it is a great advantage of really considering to put bulbs or any kind of spring beauty in pots is that you're very flexible with that. So if your garden comes to flower next spring and you kind of see you have a corner where you're missing color or there's a hole or something, you can come in with your pots almost like staging and just really fill that area and just give it exactly that color that you were missing in there. So this is definitely one of the big advantages of like why it's worth on putting bulbs into pots. So what do I have? For those of you who watched yesterday's video, you might remember for me one tulip that comes with a lot of childhood memories is Queen of Night. So this is exactly what I'm having here. I bought one bag Queen of Night. It's this really dark, almost black burgundy purplish tulip. Long stem, very elegant, classic tulip. I've got 25 of those. They grow up to 60 centimeters in height, so really impressive, especially in pots. Then the next ones I'm going to grow are varieties that I've never grown before, so it's always a nice thing to try and test it in pots actually, because then I get to see, do I like them, do I want to continue with them maybe even for next year. So what I have are 3 bags of a variety that is called Shirley. So as you can see, it's almost like a flame tulip, so they start with white at the base and then they fade out to this like purplish effect. I've seen them on Instagram on various accounts and I really liked them there, so I thought maybe I'll give it a try and see how it goes and how they're gonna look. Then I got 2 other varieties. One is called Algarve. So you got this Portugal kind of like holiday vibe going on here. They are pink and they fade out into a beautiful white tone. So I think that they might be just like a beautiful accent somewhere, maybe something that I might really need to use for staging. I've got 3 bags, I think, yeah. So I got 21 of those as well. And then I got 2 bags, so 20 of a variety that is called Alibi. So they are pink. And I think that they might be quite nice as a staging next to the bench, to put them next to the bench on a slope actually, because I planted 2 big drifts of the variety called Albert Heijn. So they are pink tulips already, and I feel maybe mixing it a little bit might be cute. So I just have this in my back of my mind. Next thing I'm going to do is, if you're really professional with this and like putting bulbs in your pots in a way where you want to have like beauty going on for month and month almost, you can stagger them because every tulip or every bulb has a different flowering season. So this is something that you might consider. I'm kind of doing it just the lukewarm version, to be honest. I just put tulips in, and then on top of it I'm going to put some crocus in some of the pots. So I have a variety that is called Jeanne d'Arc. So they are white. They probably go on top of the Shirley. I think this might be quite cute. I mean, they're not going to flower at the same time anyways. And then I still have those from my bargain hunt. I haven't put them in the ground yet because then I thought, well, I could just use them brilliantly for my pots. So I still have the 80 Firefly purple crocus, so I think they'll be perfect for this project. One thing I want to talk about in this video is the soil condition and when you're growing tulips, something I haven't done before, but I think this is a good opportunity to do it because in a moment I'm also going to mix my own soil that will go in here to show you what tulips actually really like. So tulips like a well-drained, rich soil. So if you happen to have heavy clay, then that is a problem for you actually, because this is exactly what tulips or any kind of bulbs don't really like, because they do not like to sit in a puddle or in a very damp condition, because then they start to rot. I have a very well-drained soil here because we're on top of a dike. Even if I start digging after half a meter, I reach a layer of sand, which is perfect for any kind of tulip growing. They like to sit in a neutral to slightly alkaline soil. So if you have acidic soil, this is also not ideal for them. I've never done any testing here. So I think just considering and seeing what I grow here in the garden, that the soil conditions are dang neutral. But I'm kind of thinking about really buying a kit and just testing it next year, just to know for sure what kind of soil conditions I actually have. If you're moving to a new property, for example, and you have no idea about what soil conditions you have, and if you don't have the time to do a test kit or anything, there is a very simple way of trying to test how the drainage of your soil actually is. All you do is you take a bucket, you dig a hole exactly in the size of that bucket, and then you put a bucket full of water, pour the water into that hole in the ground, and just see what happens. If the water kind of like disappears within the next couple of minutes, then you have a very well drained soil. If the water still sits in there after an hour or 2 hours, that means the drainage is not really good. And if the water still sits in there after a day, then you have a problem, because then you can really start with a bog garden actually. So this is like the worst thing that could happen. But most of the time when you have well drainage, it's really like the soil is gonna soak up the water fairly fast. So this is like always a good indicator. One last thing to say about growing tulips is, in order to make your tulips flower, they need a cold spell. So they really need a period of like cold weather, which is not a problem here in the Baltic area. January, February, I'm definitely going to have some frosty nights in here, so they're always going to be very happy and come to flower. But if you are gardening somewhere in a warmer climate where you know you just do not have frosty nights or really cold temperatures, what you can do is you manipulate the tulips. So you take your bags, put them in a fridge for a couple of days, maybe 2 weeks, so they think that they've gone through a cold period, and then you can put them in your pots or in your ground. So this is always kind of like how to be a little sneaky with those things. What I'm going to do now is flip my phone and just show you how I'm going to prepare the soil, what I do to it, and then I put it in my pots actually. Before I put something in my pots, this is something you should always do, is you need to have a crock or something to cover the drainage hole. So I have some crocks, but not enough. So if you don't have enough crocks, what I do is, and this is a very easy thing to do, you might have some plastic pots still from your previous planting projects. So I just cut off the base actually of that pot, and what I do is just tip it over and put it in here to cover the drainage hole, and that is as easy as that, and it works brilliantly. But now it's time to show you how I'm going to mix up my perfect soil for potting up tulips. I always like to prepare my soil in the wheelbarrow, because this is like this big kind of crate where you can put everything in, mix it and toss it. So this is the best and easiest thing to do. So I prepared everything and just walk you through all the things that I do. I still had like one pot that I prepared already last year, but I didn't put anything inside. So I already put the first thing in here actually. But what I do is I start with a multi-purpose compost. So this is the first thing that you should always start with basically. Kind of like a nice rich soil. And make sure that you buy one that has a good lofty texture already to it. So sometimes you get those that are a little thicker and they are not ideal for that. So this is one that I really, really like to use. So just put some in here. That is enough. Maybe a little more. That's looking good. Very nice soil. Then the next thing I add, and this is for the drainage, now I come in with the grit. So I put a lot of grit inside, just to make sure that there is a good amount of drainage in there. So just really come in with your big shovel, shovel it in. The bag is quite heavy still, so I'm not going to lift it for you. And by putting a lot of grit in, this is how you allow the water drainage basically in the soil, to make sure that the bulbs are not going to rot in your compost that you're mixing here. Next thing I do is I put some sand in, which is also really good for drainage. Just a little bit. Yeah, that looks good. And the last thing I do is something that I don't do normally when I put bulbs in the ground, but here I think it's a good thing to do and I have good experience with it. So here I come again with my popular organic bone chips. So I just a good handful of them, maybe 2 good handfuls in there. And then you just start mixing everything up basically. Which I'm going to speed up now, of course, because otherwise it's going to take a while. So really get in there with your big shovel, mix everything up, and then I put everything into my first container and start planting my first tulips with you. I think you get to understand pretty well on how I'm doing it, how I mix my soil, how I put it into the pots, how I space out my tulips and everything. Still, I just want to talk you through a little bit about the process. So one last thing about the soil. So if you're mixing your own soil and if you happen to get your hand on some loam, that would be brilliant for tulips. So buy it and mix a little bit under your potting mix as well. I was checking in the local garden center here, I couldn't find it, but I've never done it in the past. So I know it also works without it, but if you can find some loam, buy it and your tulips will be even happier about it. So what I do now basically is just quickly want to show you again how I do it. So I've prepared my pot here, put as much soil in there, how deep the tulips should sit, and then what I do as a last step basically before I put my bulbs in, I just come in with my shovel and put a little extra grit on top of it here. Just mix it under with my hands a little bit. So when I put the tulips in, I make sure that the tulips are really sitting on a nice layer of good drainage and grit and that they won't rot, especially on the base and where the roots are sitting. So now what I do is just like I come with my tulips, pop them in here, and then I can just space them out. And the fun part about spacing them out, especially here in pots, is you can forget about every single information that you read on your label, because you can really pack these pots full of tulips, as many as you like, because then the display will be even better. You can also do it in in-ground planting, of course, but here it is really for a big impact. One thing you should always try and make sure, if it's like in-ground planting or in the pots, that the bulbs are never touching. Because if one bulb has an infection or starts to rot or anything, it is going to spread through your entire pot and all the bulbs will be infected. So this is the one thing you really want to make sure to never ever happen. This is pretty much almost my last pot. I think I have got 2 more bags left. So this is what I'm going to do alone in my garden now. I'm really happy about it. And then I'm going to store all of my pots. And when it comes to the storing, I store them in a very sunny area of the garden, which is next to the driveway. So this is also what you should consider when you store your pots. Don't try and hide them somewhere in the shade behind your garden shed or behind your garage. They really want to bask in the sun during the winter time. So this is what I give them. I hope you had a lot of fun with these 3 days of planting spring bulbs for next year. I always love doing it because I know that next spring to come, I'm going to enjoy all of the beauty that I put in the ground or in the pots now. I hope you could learn something today or you could find something inspiring out of this video, and I'd be very happy to welcome you in my garden very soon again. Until then, have a wonderful day, guys. Take care. Bye.